Last summer, I made a deal that took everything from me. I was 34, trying to turn my life around. I moved into a low-rent apartment complex to escape my mounting debt. The faded paint and peeling wallpaper didn't bother me. I thought it was just temporary, a way to focus on my work as a freelance graphic designer. In the beginning, everything felt normal. I set up my space and settled in. I could hear my neighbors moving about. It was cheap, but I felt okay. On the second night, I heard a soft tapping sound against the wall. It was rhythmic, like someone was trying to get my attention. I pushed it aside, thinking it was just old pipes. I turned up my music and figured I could manage, but the tapping grew louder each night. I started to hear whispers too, though I could never catch the words. Maybe it was just my imagination playing tricks on me. I wanted to shake off the unease. I buried myself in work, but the shadows began moving in my peripheral vision. I told myself it was just stress. But the feeling didn't go away. Then I saw the figure in the hallway. It was vague and indistinct, barely there. Whenever I tried to focus on it, it vanished. My heart raced each time. I felt nervous just thinking about it. I often questioned whether I was losing my grip on reality. Some nights, I would sit in silence, listening as the tapping grew louder. I felt a chill running down my spine. Then there were the text messages. Strange numbers sent me cryptic sentences. "They know you," one text said. "You can't escape." I didn't recognize the numbers, and they felt personal. Each message felt like a piece of a puzzle, and I couldn't figure it out. I wondered if it was a prank or if I was really losing my mind. As the weeks passed, I felt more trapped. I kept hearing that tapping, and finally, it felt insistent. My body was frozen in fear on some nights. I could barely sleep as the dread hung thick in the air. One night, I decided I had enough. I needed to confront whatever haunted me. I turned on the living room light and stood ready. The air felt heavy. I heard a tap, louder this time, right behind me. My heart was racing, and I turned around quickly. Nothing was there. I stood still, my breath caught in my throat. I tried to convince myself it was nothing, just my mind playing tricks again. Then, I heard another whisper again, too faint to understand. I felt something was watching me. I was scared but couldn't run. Then one night, as I lay in bed, I heard a loud bang. It echoed through the silence, followed by a whisper. I could feel the presence again, and it was closer this time. I finally fell asleep, but I woke at dawn. I never figured it out. I decided to leave the apartment. I packed my things and got out while I could. But that summer changed me. I never stopped thinking about it. The next morning, I made my way to a coffee shop, hoping the strong brew would shake off the remnants of that haunting summer. I needed a distraction. I sat in a corner, staring blankly at the screen of my laptop, the cursor blinking impatiently. But the words wouldn't come. My mind drifted back to the strange messages. "They know you." What did that even mean? I glanced at my phone, half expecting another cryptic text, but nothing came through. Frustrated, I decided to call in sick to my freelance gigs. I needed a break, to gather my thoughts. After downing my coffee, I wandered the streets. I passed the apartment complex where I once lived, and a shiver ran down my spine. The building looked the same, dull and uninviting. I felt an urge to go inside, to face whatever lingered in the shadows. It was crazy, but I couldn't shake that feeling that I stepped into the lobby. The smell of mildew wrapped around me like a thick fog. I hesitated but pushed forward. My old apartment door was parallel to me, still ominous despite the daylight. I reached for the doorknob without thinking. But it was locked. A wave of relief mixed with disappointment washed over me. Then I noticed a piece of paper fluttering beneath the doorway of the apartment next to mine. I bent down to collect it. The note was old and yellowed, the handwriting barely legible. It read, "They will come for you. Don't let them." My heart raced. I kept looking over my shoulder. Who was they? What did this mean? I felt the familiar chill behind me, the sensation of being watched. I bolted out of the lobby, my breath quickening. I couldn't stay here. Once outside, I tried to wrap my mind around the note. I thought about the strange figure I've seen in the hallway and those whispers creeping into my thoughts. Then, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I fished it out, and another message blinked on the screen. Time is running out. I felt the panic rise again. Each text felt like a countdown. I needed to find answers, but to do that I would have to confront my past. I couldn't keep running. Back home, I pulled out my laptop and researched the apartment complex. After digging, I found a local news article referencing a string of strange occurrences in the area. People had gone missing. Their families never got answers. My jaw clenched. This confirmed my fears. I clicked through the pages, my heart pounding. That's when I saw it. One name stood out, my old landlord. I had only known him briefly, but his face was familiar from the photos. I felt a sickening twist in my stomach. As I dug deeper, I realized he wasn't just any landlord. He had a history, a dark one. And just as I began to unravel the truth, a shout from the hallway startled me. Someone was at my door. My hands went clammy. I wasn't ready for this. I stood frozen, heart racing, when the shout sliced through the stillness. Open up. I know you're in there. The voice was gravelly, almost unrecognizable, but something about it was hauntingly familiar. I took a step back from the door, trying to silence the frantic beats of my heart. I thought of the notes, the texts, the lurking figure. Suddenly, everything felt too real. I had been searching for answers, but had I also unwittingly summoned trouble into my life? Please, just open the door. The voice pleaded again, urgency tinged with desperation. I can help you. Help? Or was this the note warned me about? I couldn't afford to hesitate. As the voice continued to call for me, a frantic urge to flee swept over me. I grabbed my phone, contemplating whether to call the police. But I hesitated again. What if this was someone who knew something crucial? With shaking hands, I pressed my ear against the door. The chilling silence that followed was deafening. Had they left? I turned to the window and glanced outside. My small street was empty, the early evening light casting long shadows against the pavement. I slowly peeked through the peephole. My breath caught. Standing outside was a tall figure, the same person I had seen in the hallway before, wearing a worn-out jacket and a baseball cap pulled low. I couldn't see their face clearly, but something about their presence raised every hair on my body. Please. I know about what happened, they shouted again, their voice low but frantic. You don't understand yet. You're in danger. My chest tightened. I wanted to scream. I wanted to yell that I was already in danger. Instead, I listened. Was it actually possible they held the key to my questions? It felt like a terrible gamble. Just let me explain, the figure pleaded. You need to know about the landlord. He is not who you think he is. The hint of urgency in their voice struck a nerve. I hesitated, torn between letting someone into my home and keeping the door firmly shut against the outside world. Suddenly, a surge of anger mixed with fear boiled within me. Who had this person been to come knocking on my door? What do you know? I said, my voice steady despite the internal quaking. I know everything, they responded, their voice softer now. And it's worse than you think. You have to trust me if you want to get out of this alive. That was all I needed to hear. I took a deep breath, adrenaline coursing through my veins. I unlocked the door, but just as I pulled it open, everything went dark. The lights flickered and then went out, plunging me into complete darkness. I felt a rush of air as the door swung open wider. Get inside. The figure insisted, urgency palpable. As I stumbled back into my living room, I barely caught a glimpse of their face before the door shut behind me with a finality that felt ominous. "What is happening?" I demanded, panic bleeding into my voice. But before they could reply, the silence around us broke with a sudden, loud crash from the hallway. Someone was inside the building. And they were coming for me. The darkness pressed in around me, thick and suffocating. Every sound seemed amplified: the distant creak of the floorboards, the muffled thud of the intruder's footsteps. I turned to the figure who had forced their way into my home, desperate for answers, but they were already scanning the room, eyes wide, shoulders tense. "Listen," they whispered urgently, "we don't have much time. They're here for you. We need to hide." The panic in their voice fed my own. "Who are you? What is going on?" I stammered, my heart thundering in my chest. I was teetering on the edge of terror, caught between wanting to flee and a need for clarity. "Later," they snapped, cutting me off. "Right now, we need to move." Without waiting for a response, they grabbed my wrist and pulled me towards the back door. I stumbled after them, the cold metal of the doorknob felt foreign in my sweaty palm. My mind raced. This whole situation was spiraling out of control. Suddenly, the crash sounded again, closer this time. I froze. What was that? No time. They pushed open the back door, the cool night air flooding in. I hesitated, instinct screaming to retreat back to safety. "Trust me," they urged, their grip tightening. I glanced back at the living room. My sanctuary suddenly felt like a trap, vulnerable and exposed. I couldn't stand still, knowing someone was hunting for me. So I stepped outside, the door slamming shut behind us. The yard was shrouded in darkness, only faint moonlight illuminating the way. I could just make out the figure in front of me. "This way," they whispered, leading me toward a narrow path that snaked around my building. "Why me? Who wants me?" I shot questions into the night, each one more frantic than the last. "And who are you?" They paused long enough to look back, face illuminated just enough for me to see determination etched in their features. "I'm someone who got caught in the same web," they replied, their voice hushed but strong. "The landlord, he draws people in. You don't realize it yet, but you're part of something bigger than you think. Something dangerous." That only confused me further. "What do you mean? What is his deal?" Before they could answer, a figure loomed at the end of the alley, casting a long shadow. My breath caught in my throat. It was him. The landlord. "What do we do?" I gasped, panic surging wildly through me again. "Hide." They pushed me behind a cluster of bushes, and I crouched down instinctively, my heart hammering. I could barely hear my own thoughts over the rush of adrenaline. The landlord's south silhouette was close now, his voice low but penetrating. "I know you're out there," he called, searching the darkness. "You can't hide from me. You made a deal, and it's time to collect." I felt the figure beside me stiffen. "We have to get out of here," they murmured, their eyes darting around for an escape. I made a split-second decision. "What is the deal?" I whispered urgently. "What did I agree to?" "Everything," they replied, their eyes locking onto mine. "And it's about to cost you everything." Before I could process their words, I heard the footsteps approaching. They were coming straight for us, and I knew it was only a matter of seconds before we were discovered. My heart raced as I crouched behind the bushes, the weight of fear pressing down on me. I could barely breathe, each inhalation a reminder of just how on edge I was. I glanced to my left, trying to gauge my companion's reaction. They seemed tense, muscles coiled like a spring, ready to spring into action. "I don't know how much longer we can stay here," they whispered, shifting slightly to peer through the leaves. "We've got to move. There's no telling what he'll do if he finds us." "Then where do we go?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. The options felt limited. The alley stretched ahead, dark and foreboding, but the looming figure of the landlord behind us felt like an even worse prospect. "Just follow my lead," they replied, finally emerging from the bushes. I took a deep breath and stumbled after them, adrenaline fueling my legs. As we crept along the edge of the alley, I glanced back. The landlord had paused, his head tilting slightly, as if he sensed our presence. "We need to stay close to the shadows," my companion instructed, scanning the area for possible routes. I nodded, my throat dry and heart pounding that I needed answers, but right now, survival was the priority. I focused on my breathing, willing myself to remain silent and swift. Each step felt like a challenge, every sound amplified, footsteps echoing, distant traffic humming, my own heartbeat thundering in my ears. "Over here." My companion motioned towards a small door tucked into the side of the building. It was weathered and worn but seemed like a potential refuge. I didn't hesitate as we slipped inside, the door creaking quietly as it closed behind us. Inside, darkness enveloped us. My eyes adjusted slowly, revealing an old utility room. Boxes were stacked haphazardly against the walls, dusty tools cluttered the countertops, and the air was thick with the smell of dampness. "Stay here. I'll check if he has followed us," they said. I watched as they moved toward the door, pausing to listen. Time felt like it hung heavy, every second stretching into eternity. After a long minute, they returned, relief washing over their face. "He's gone for now, but we can't stay here for long." They pointed to a ladder in the corner. "It leads to the basement. We might be able to escape from there." Escape? My voice was still shaky, the gravity of our situation hitting me like a wave. "But we just end up trapped somewhere else?" "Possibly," they admitted. "But it's our best chance. Trust me, there's more at stake than you realize. If he finds you again, it won't end well." A cold realization washed over me. I had no idea what kind of deal I had made or how deep this situation went. Panic began to claw its way back up my throat, but I swallowed it down. "Okay," I said, quelling my fear. "Let us go." As we neared the ladder, a sudden noise echoed outside, loud and chaotic. It sent a chill down my spine. I realized then that my heart hadn't been racing for nothing. I paused, my hand gripping the rung of the ladder. What was that? "Something or someone has found us," my companion whispered sharply. "We have to move, now." But as we scrambled toward the ladder, I caught a flash of movement outside the small window, a shadow darting through the night, an unexpected twist that made my stomach drop. Who else was out there? And had they been drawn into this twisted game too? That's when I noticed it, the glint of a knife, catching the light as a figure moved closer. My heart sank. We weren't just escaping the landlord anymore. We had stirred up something far worse. Before I could fully process what I was seeing, my companion yanked my arm, pulling me toward the ladder. "Go!" they hissed, urgency flooding their voice. Fear surged through me, propelling my legs as I climbed, heart pounding in my ears. The rungs felt unsteady under my weight, and I glanced back just as I reached the top. The darkened figure outside was almost upon us, the knife gleaming ominously. I could almost make out a face, twisted in anger or something darker. We had to move faster. When I reached the top, I found myself in a narrow corridor. It was dim, with faint light seeping through cracks in the door at the far end. "This way," my companion urged, motioning down the hall. I followed, each step echoing against the musty walls, dread creeping in with every stride. "Do you recognize that person?" I whispered, breathless. "No idea," they replied, keeping their voice low. "But we can't stick around to find out." I could hear the figure outside now, muttering to themselves. It sent chills racing down my spine. What kind of person chases someone with a knife? As we approached the door at the end of the hallway, I could see it was slightly ajar. "Listen," my companion said, raising a hand. "We must be quiet. If they pass the corridor and see us." A loud crash interrupted us, followed by a string of curses. "Where are you?" The voice shouted, thick with rage. Go. My companion whispered urgently again, and without a second thought, I pushed through the door. I stumbled into a larger room, the light freezing me in place. The sight was surreal. Old furniture was strewn across the floor, covered in tarps, bottles lined the walls, and at the center stood a makeshift table sprawled with scattered papers and old photographs. It looked like a forgotten sanctuary, but as I scanned the walls, the unease in my gut intensified. What is this place? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. I think it used to be an old workshop, my companion replied, peering through a dusty window. We need to find a way out. As they searched for another exit, my eyes were drawn to the walls. Familiar faces stared back from yellowing photographs, couples smiling, children laughing. But then I noticed something alarming. Among the candid snapshots was an image of the landlord, only he looked much younger. That can't be, I muttered, my heart racing anew. Do you see him? Yeah, my companion replied slowly. What is he doing here? Before I could answer, the door slammed against the wall behind us, and the figure with the knife emerged into the room, fury etched across their face. I know you're in here. Panic surged within me. We were cornered. There was nowhere to run. That's when I caught sight of a light flickering above the table, illuminating a small object, a key. It shimmered with possibilities, but how could it offer any real hope when danger stood just steps away? I lunged for the key without thinking. It felt cool and heavy in my palm as I turned to face the intruder. My heart raced not just from fear, but also from a flicker of hope. We can use this. I shouted to my companion, but my excitement was cut short by the deranged look in the stranger's eyes. Get away from there. They screeched, brandishing the knife. The blade glinted as they took a step forward, sending adrenaline coursing through me. That I looked at my companion, who nodded toward an open window at the far end of the room. It was our only way out. Now. They urged. I tucked the key into my pocket and rushed toward the window, but the figure was faster. They lunged, knocking over the table and sending papers flying. Out. Go. My companion shouted, pushing me toward the window. I clumsily scrambled up, my legs tangling in the heavy curtains. I could feel the urgency of the moment in my bones. Behind me, the figure cursed as they stumbled over the wreckage. That I finally grabbed the window ledge and pulled myself up. The chill air hit my face as I flung myself out, landing in a messy heap on the ground below. My companion followed, landing next to me with a thud. Run! I gasped, instinct taking over. The sky was dimming, and whatever light remained seemed to shrink with the encroaching evening. We sprinted into the alley, the sounds of our pursuer fading, but only slightly. Where are we? I asked, glancing around at the unfamiliar surroundings. The walls were covered in graffiti, and the ground was littered with debris. Some kind of old storage area, my companion panted, scanning the place. Just keep moving. We pushed through the alley, and soon came to a street. There were a few dilapidated houses, but none looked inviting. As we ran, the reality of what just happened crashed down on me. That person had tried to kill us. I felt the key in my pocket, a reminder of the mysteries surrounding us. What if that key opened something important? I asked, still breathless from the escape. Maybe it's a clue. Or a trap, my companion replied. We can't get distracted. We need to find a safe place. They paused for a moment, looking back. What if they're still coming? Before I could answer, I heard footsteps echoing behind us, growing closer. Hurry! I urged, and we took off again. In the distance, there was a flicker of light from a nearby building. Could it be a safe haven? I thought, but as we reached the entrance, dread settled in my stomach. Someone stood in the doorway, silhouetted against the light. I couldn't make out their features, but I felt the weight of their gaze on us. What do you want? I called out, ready to run or fight, unsure of what came next. The figure stepped forward, and my breath caught. I recognized the face one of the people from the photographs. But how could that be possible? I didn't have time to find out. The footsteps behind us were getting louder, pressing in like a vice. Come inside. The stranger motioned, urgency in their voice. Quickly. They'll find you out here. Fear clawed at my heart as I glanced back. I had a decision to make, but I didn't know if this person was a friend or another trap. The darkness loomed closer. What could I do? I hesitated, heart pounding, but the sound of footsteps intensified, breaking me from indecision. I bolted toward the figure in the doorway, practically colliding with them as they pulled me inside. My companion followed, and the door slammed shut behind us with a heavy thud. Inside, it was dark and cramped. A single bulb flickered above, swaying slightly as if in response to our frantic energy. I leaned against the wall to catch my breath, panic still thrumming in my veins. The figure stepped into the light, and I finally saw their face clearly. It was a woman in her late 30s, her hair messy and her clothes worn. "You're safe for now," she hissed, glancing at the door. "But you need to be quiet. They'll hear you." "Who are you?" I managed to ask, my voice barely above a whisper. My mind raced with questions. Was she part of whatever we had just escaped from? "My name is Claire." "I knew you'd come this way," she replied hurriedly. "I've been watching." I didn't think it would be so soon. "Watching?" My companion frowned, looking between Claire and me. "What do you mean?" "Those people who chased you, they're after something. Just like they were after your father," Claire explained, her eyes darting to the door. "I need you to listen closely. You hold something important. The key." My fingers instinctively clenched around it in my pocket. "What is it?" I asked, my heart racing again, but now with curiosity. Claire sighed, her expression grim. "You have a key that opens a door to a safe place. But it's not just any door. The key unlocks a series of secrets, the kind that can change everything." "Secrets?" My companion echoed, skepticism etched on their face. "What do you mean?" "Your father made a deal last summer, a dangerous one," Claire said, her voice low. "He hoped to protect you, but it cost him dearly. They'll come for you next. They want to finish what he started." I exchanged a glance with my companion, confusion filling the space between us. "We need answers, not more questions," I said, trying to maintain a grip on my racing thoughts. "Stay focused," Claire urged, her eyes widening at a sound outside, a scuffle intermingled with low voices. "They found you quickly. We don't have time. You need to leave again." Before I could object, she moved to grab my wrist, pulling me toward a narrow hallway leading farther into the building, but then I froze. Everything spun as another thought crashed into my mind. "What if you're lying?" I blurted out. "What if this is just another trap?" Claire paused, her grip tightening. "Then you'll be stuck here. With no way out." The fear in her eyes matched my own, but before I could think it through, the door shook violently. My heart dropped. "Help!" someone shouted from outside. "Let me in." I looked at Claire, and she shook her head frantically. "Who is that?" my companion asked, panic creeping back into their voice. "Someone from my past," Claire replied cryptically. "And if you thought these people were bad, you haven't seen anything yet." Then everything went dark. When the darkness swallowed us, the air thickened with a kind of tension that made my skin crawl. I reached for my companion, but Claire pulled us deeper into the narrow hallway. My heart raced in silence, straining to hear the whispers outside. They were getting closer. Suddenly, a blinding light flared to life behind us. The door had swung open. I could see shadows moving quickly, followed by hushed voices that made my stomach knot. "Claire! Open up!" A deep voice barked from the doorway. "Move!" Claire hissed, pulling me to the right. "This way!" I stumbled after her, my mind racing. The darkness had felt safe, but now it only amplified my fear. Who was coming for us? What did they want? We turned into a small room lined with old crates and discarded furniture. Claire wasted no time shoving aside a pile of junk to reveal a trapdoor in the floor. "Hurry!" she urged, glancing back at the hallway. I took a deep breath and crouched down near the trapdoor, my hands shaking. It felt like a leap into uncertainty, but I doubted we had any other choice. My companion hesitated for a second, but Claire gave them a quick nod, solidifying our decision. We could trust her, at least for now. Once the trapdoor was open, Claire climbed in first, and I followed, sliding down a narrow wooden ladder. I landed on a dirt floor that smelled damp and old. My companion landed lightly next to me and we exchanged anxious glances. "Where are we?" they whispered. "I don't know," I replied, trying to suppress the tremor in my voice. As we surveyed our surroundings, I noticed the walls were lined with faded photographs and scattered papers. This wasn't just a hiding spot, it was someone's secretive past. "Look," I pointed to a torn piece of paper nearby. It was a map. Scribbled lines crisscrossed as if marking trails of some kind. What were they leading to? I felt a strange tug of recognition deep in my gut. Before I could say anything more, we heard shuffling noises from above. The trapdoor rattled as footsteps fell heavily above us. I shot a panicked glance at Claire, who took a step closer, urgency etched across her face. "Here," she said, handing me a flashlight she had tucked away in her bag. "It's going to get darker." I flicked it on, illuminating the space. The ground was littered with trinkets, some familiar, others foreign. Strangely, one object caught my eye, something that looked like a pocket watch, engraved with the initials M. "Do either of you know what this is?" Claire asked, eyeing me cautiously. My heart raced as I realized it belonged to my father. How did it end up here? Then it hit me. If Claire was connected to my father's past, maybe these memories held answers. But before I could process anything, a loud crash echoed from above, shaking the very ground beneath us. The footsteps turned into shouts. "Go back. They must be down there." We exchanged glances again, and fear coursed through me like ice water. Claire's eyes widened, the walls suddenly closing in. What if this was a mistake? What if we were trapped, nowhere to run? Before I could voice any of this, I heard a familiar voice among the shouts. "I know they're here." My father's voice. I shot up, my heart racing as his words echoed in my mind. He was alive. No, this couldn't be happening. He's down there. A voice shouted again, growing nearer. This was a nightmare playing out before my eyes. If my father was here, how could he have gotten mixed up in all this? Had Claire been lying? Did I really trust her, or was she a trickster like the others? "Come on," Claire urged, pulling me away from the trapdoor. My thoughts raced as I struggled to process everything. I didn't want to leave my father behind, yet staying put felt like a death sentence. "We can't let them get us," Claire said, urgency in her voice. "This way." With no better option, I followed her deeper into the dim space, my companion close behind. My gut twisted, an overwhelming dread mingling with every hurried step. What were we running from, and what awaited us? We navigated through the darkness, finally emerging in a larger room that resembled a former storeroom. Dust hung in the air, and cobwebs clung to old machinery and crates. My breath came in short gasps. "Where are we?" I panted, panic prickling at my skin. "This leads to an underground passage," Claire said tersely, "but we need to hurry. They're coming." I could hear the footsteps above, a dangerous chorus of shouts and crashing that beat like a drum in my ears. I glanced toward the passage. What lay ahead could be our only escape, but I couldn't shake the anxiety stirring inside me. I desperately wanted reassurance that we weren't stepping into another trap. Claire caught my hesitation. "You have to trust me," she said, her eyes meeting mine with fierce intensity. Their plan is ancient, and they've been preying on those like you and your father. Why are you doing this? My voice shook. If you were watching us, weren't you part of it? She looked away, frustration etching her features. I made my choices long ago, but what I do now is fight back. I want to let you fall into their hands, too. You don't understand what's at stake. Her desperation tugged at my resolve, and despite my doubts, I nodded. Okay, let us go. We crept toward the passage, heartbeats quickening in rhythm with footsteps getting louder above. I felt the heat of uncertainty pressing in, but we had little time. Once inside, we shuffled along the narrow tunnel, the air stale and biting at our lungs. My thoughts whirled as I considered my father. Why had he been taken into this chaotic web? As we descended deeper, the faint glimmers of light from behind flickered, long shadows dancing around us with every step. I don't know how far this goes, Claire muttered, but we need to keep moving. This place is a maze. Suddenly, an echo ricocheted from the tunnel behind us, causing me to freeze. Did you hear that? I whispered, dread pooling in my stomach. Yes. Claire's voice was tight with tension as she pressed forward. Faster. We're running out of time. We picked up speed, the air thick with uncertainty. My heart wondered if this ever would end, if we would actually get away, or if this was just a trap, yet I couldn't allow that fear to take root. The thought of my father, however, kept me pressing on, his figure beckoning in the recesses of my mind. Then we reached a heavy wooden door, locked but without barriers. Claire motioned for me to step aside as she checked for any mechanism. There's a way through here, she assured, her fingers deftly working. I should be able to break it. I glanced behind, listening for sounds of pursuit. Then, without warning, the ground shook, making us stagger. An explosion of noise erupted from above, dust raining down from the ceiling, and I instinctively pressed against the wall, adrenaline coursing through me. Now! Claire urged, and she slammed against the door. It creaked open just enough to squeeze through. Grateful, I tumbled past her into the darkness of the next room, wasting no time. We crouched in the shadows as we caught our breath and listened. The muted voices above became an unsettling reminder of the dangers lurking above. I focused hard for a moment, trying to hone in, trying to pinpoint my father's voice. I know you're down here. His voice called out again, the resonance of it sending chills through me. I felt as if I were teetering on a precipice of possibility and dread. There's nothing we can do unless we leave, Claire insisted, but my determination as to stay rooted in place. But no. We need to find a way to slip out of here entirely. He's safer where he is than with the likes of them. Claire's words felt distant, and I swallowed down my frustration, realizing she was right. The tumult growing above might swallow us whole if we didn't act now. Then my fingers brushed the pocket where the key rested. I needed to understand it. The memories of my father swirled around me, fragments of who I was beginning to piece together. The weight of that key felt heavy with unresolved answers, with something valuable and significant. I have to confront him, I muttered as we moved stealthily to a nearby exit. This was my chance to unveil the truth. The pieces could only fall into place in the presence of my father. But would he recognize me? What was the cost? Listen to me. Claire interrupted, gripping me by the arm. If you do this, just know that confronting him may be more dangerous than you expect. Don't forget what you hold. That key has its own power. And just like that, an electric thrill rushed through my veins. What if the key was something more than just an object? What if it opened doors not just to escape, but also to an unraveling of it all? Suddenly, an urgent crash echoed back towards us, a prelude to chaos breaching the delicate calm that had fallen over us. Time was slipping, and I needed to act before the darkness enveloped everything else. We advanced toward another door, adrenaline propelling me forward. I had questions for my father lingering in my mind like a storm, yet the uncertainty of what lay ahead not only terrified me but fueled my resolve as well. I was not just running anymore, I was ready to uncover the truth, but as we exited, I couldn't shake the feeling that even if we escaped, the threat was far from over. The sound of footsteps was fading in the distance, and all I could think of was the hunt that drew closer, a dangerous formula of shadows and secrets weaving around me in a tight net that we might have escaped tonight, but the past hung there, teetering between reality and shadows, waiting for the moment I'd have to confront it, and I wasn't sure where that would lead me.